Hello and welcome to the Lean on Agile show. I'm your host, Shaheen, and I have a very well-known Agile coach person. And I want to say the most well-known when it comes to Agile coaching and when the term Agile coaching has been shaped. She helped a lot in shaping that. And for all of you, I'm sure that you know of her, Lyssa Adkins. Lyssa, it's a true pleasure having you on the show. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. I'm excited to see where our conversation goes. I hope some interesting places.
Yeah, for sure. Same here. So tell us, Lyssa, who is Lyssa? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am now a woman in middle age, and I have had a long career, first as a project manager, and then surprisingly encountering Agile, and pretty quickly after that, loving it, but also dealing with the identity crisis that came with the huge mindset shift that it takes to actually become an Agilist. And as you said, I spent about 10 years really dedicating myself to the emergence of Agile coaching as a profession.
Mm-hmm.
And in the last 5 or 6 years, I have shifted my focus to be working with leaders and with leadership teams because they have such an outsized impact on organizations. And so that's a bit about my trajectory through my career so far. Another piece I will tell you about Lyssa Adkins, referring to myself in the third person is a little weird, but I'm a mother. I have a daughter who I now own a business with. We have a retreat space in Portugal that she and her partner and I own together, and they operate. And we love to partner with workshops, business retreats, wellness retreats, and just make an amazing experience for people. So that has been really enlivening me in the last few years. And in general, I spend a lot of time thinking about the future. A lot. It's so funny how to do Agile coaching well, you have to be in the present. Well, I've had to really train myself to be in the present because my mind typically goes to the future. And I'm really dedicated to waking up as many Agilists as possible to our superpowers and the possibility that we could be a real force for good for these many planetary challenges that threaten the human species right now.
Right. There are lots to uncover. So let me get you back to when you came into the I want to say the resistance or the edge to use what I learned as an Agile to the edge to move from project manager to the world of Agile coaching and tell us the challenges that you saw there, like for yourself, and then what got you into that 10 years that you expand on shaping that world for us.
Well, what got me into Agile to begin with was just one of these life transition moments when I realized that as a single mother, I could not continue being a director of a project management office and working 12 hours a day and having my kid be the last one to be picked up from daycare every single day. And so I just made a life choice to go take a simple project management job. And where I took that job, they were doing Scrum and they had these roles called Agile coaches. And just because they didn't want to commit, they didn't want to say Scrum Master, so they just said Agile coach instead.
Right.
And so that's when I got to encounter it, which was really by accident, or maybe you could say by, divine intervention. Who knows which one, but I'll take it. And the resistance really came from the redefinition of what it means to be of value in the modern world of work. As a project manager, I thought I was being valuable because I was directing things. I was the one who knew all the pieces of the project and how they fit together. In fact, I was usually the only one who knew all the pieces. I would talk on behalf of the team all the time. I would attend these, high-level steering committee meetings where I would, even make promises on behalf
Mhm.
of the team. And so those things all felt like really valuable. And then when I moved into Agile and I found out that not only were those things not valuable, that they were harmful. There's where the identity crisis starts, because
Right.
now I have to not only learn a whole new way of being and a set of skills that go with that, but I have to actually face up to the damage I've done. And at that point, I had been a project manager for 15 years.
Mhm.
And I had to really face the fact that I actually was party to a system that crushed people's creativity. And I
Mhm.
was helping enact that system.
Right. Right. And realizing that it's going to and changing that, changing the way that you act after 15 years was not easy, was it? Like,
It wasn't easy. And I, thank God, I had a wonderful mentor, a man
right,
named Mike Vistos. He was one of the very first Scrum trainers certified by the Scrum Alliance. This organization I had gone to had hired him and a handful of other people who had really done Scrum before. They were experienced, and he was my mentor. And thank God for him, because I could not see myself.
right.
He would be the one to point out to me, like, Lyssa, you're trying to control them. No, I'm not.
Mhm.
No, you really are. Lyssa, you are trying to control them.
Right.
And so you could feel the resistance. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. And then, finally realizing, my God, I am trying to control them. And not only that, they'll let me do it, and it will be to the detriment of them, and it will be to the detriment of the product we're trying to build.
Mhm. Right. I had a similar experience when I started my career as a Scrum Master, and we had a really good Agile coach that two couple of years back he was my mentor as well, and it was one advice that he gave me. I was running a retrospective. He was just sitting there, just observing me, and like I'm sure I have done a lot wrong in that one session, but he was told me that you could have done a better job of letting them self-organize around picking which team they need to be for that exercise that you have done. I'm like, no, I know the best, right? I know these guys talk to each other the best. Those guys work with each other the best. And at that time, it didn't click. But later and later on, that when I got back to that point, I'm like, oh, that's a very wise advice that he gave me. And so all to say, to highlight the fact that all of us need mentors and coaches. That plays a big role in how we grow and we shape our future. And I have benefited from that. And to the whole Agile community, I see that there are lots of good people that are willing to offer that. And that's one of the major aspect that attracted me to this whole profession. Like I know there's always someone that I can rely on to talk to or even to be mentored on.
Yeah. What I love about the Agile community is that it is such a warm and welcoming community. And it's a group of people who basically just love to experiment and learn and share with each other. And
Right,
I have attended meetups, Agile meetups all over the world, all over the world. And
right,
it's the same. It's so warm and welcoming, and people are so interested in helping each other. And like, I need a job. I have a job, like,
right,
making those sorts of matches. And then now, in the profession of Agile coaching, in our current day, there are lots of opportunities for getting mentored and getting coached in Agile coaching. And there are whole training curriculums, and there are
right,
competence-based assessments, to just make sure you really do have the skills of Agile coaching. So there's just a lot of ways to develop oneself, and not only the skills, but like we just talked about before, the beingness
right,
of being an Agile coach. And actually, agility just requires a wholesale change of beliefs for so many people, like it did for me.
right. True, true. And you mentioned that after that 10 years, you focused on leadership mostly, and working with leaders. Tell us how different and how exciting was it compared to just focusing on agile coaching?
Well, after moving away from the agile coaching space, which I did because at that point there were, 24 people who were advancing the state of the art of agile coaching. I didn't need to be there anymore. And I was yearning for something else, but I didn't know what it was. So for a year after that, I actually didn't create anything new.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. I mean, which is so unusual for me. I'm just such a creatrix. I'm constantly creating programs or keynotes or something, new ideas. And I really took that time to consider, if I do have this one wild and precious life, as the poem goes, where could I have the most meaningful impact? Not only for me, but for the people I work with and for the greater space of our whole world. Like, where could it be the greatest impact? And what kept ringing in my ears was what I kept hearing from agile coaches all over the world. I'm telling you,
Mm-hmm.
Agile Coaching Institute, at the time we sold it, had worked with over 10,000 people in the skills of agile coaching. And I
Wow.
personally worked with a few thousand, probably more than a few thousand, and really deeply worked with several hundred.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I had this bird's eye view of agility across organizations, geographies, sizes of companies, industries, the whole thing. And the one thing that kept coming, can you guess what it is?
Mindset.
Yeah, basically, my leaders don't get it.
Right.
That's what people kept saying. Yeah, this is great, but my leaders don't get it. Yeah, this would
Right.
be work perfectly, but my leaders don't get it. Everything had my leaders don't get it at the end of the
Right.
sentence. And so I thought, okay, well, let me just go find out. Let me just go
Mm-hmm.
find out what these leaders don't get
Yeah.
and see if
Right.
I could be helpful. So that's how I ended up working with leaders and leadership teams. And what I found out is that, given my professional coaching background, I decided to work with them from a coaching perspective, not an agile consulting perspective,
Mm-hmm.
not even an agile coaching perspective,
Right.
just coaching,
Coaching.
like helping them develop themselves as leaders and helping them develop their capabilities as leadership teams, which of course is completely adjacent to agile,
Right.
but not about agile. What I found out when I did that is that leadership teams have all the same problems delivery teams have, only their impact is so much greater.
Mm-hmm.
So like the stakes are so much higher.
Mm-hmm.
And the problems are essentially human relationship skills.
Mm-hmm.
In a nutshell, the same stuff I was working with on development teams or at program level in organizations, same thing is showing up in
Same.
leadership teams.
So they get it. It's not something that they don't get it. They don't have time to change properly.
No, they may or may not get it.
Okay.
And that varied.
Right.
Some did, some didn't. But basically what was in their way was their own ability to be in courageous conversation with each other,
Mm-hmm.
to make clean decisions, to bring on creativity and their ability to be in conflict together. So it was all of those human relationship things, those skills that most of us have not learned in school. And I do hope
Right.
the current generations are getting it.
Right.
But it's all of those things that was holding back the team's ability to execute on their strategy, but also to see how agility is a perfect match to their business strategy.
Right.
So as soon as they could sort of get that going and mature themselves as leaders, then they could clear the way for agility to work better in the organization. They're no
Right.
longer in the way.
I think it's Esther Derby is one of her keynotes. She was talking about how leaders or how people got promoted through the organizations, and it's not because you are good at what you just talking about, but because you are good at as your technical skill set. So if you're a developer, you get promoted to become a lead dev, then you become a manager. And at that level, they said, "Oh, you have been doing this for a long time. You should be able to manage people." No one thinks about all these skill sets that they need. You very nicely put it. I ask you to repeat that again. But these skill sets, and she is talking about that you need to learn, you need to invest into learning these skill sets. And as coaches, you are going to bring some of those things to the field. And if you are not, you are just focused on as a technical person in any field. Like if you are a financial analyst, if you are a developer, if you are a chemist, right? If you get to that level that you are working with people and not individual anymore, you need to expand your skill sets beyond that, right? And for that, I'm hoping the current generation gets that as well. Um, you mentioned, Lisa, that yeah, I was going to ask you, but you mentioned that you had a very successful business, Agile Coaching Institute, that you have sold that. So was that your uh, was that when you started that, was that I want to take the conversation into a little bit more on the business side, like how to be successful as a consultant. So when you started Agile Coaching Institute, did you had that vision that you get to the place that you are going to teach 10,000 people, and through that, like, this is how impactful your work gonna be? Or you started that as an experiment and build on top of one step at a time and get there? Um, how that did that shape to become the most, I say, agile coaching successful entity?
I don't think we knew what was going to happen. And I
Mhm.
co-founded Agile Coaching Institute with Michael Spade. And then later we were joined with Michael Hammond as a principal in the
Right.
organization. So it's really the three of us working the organization with, anywhere from 5 to 7 other co-leaders of our courses. So it always was small when we
Right.
had it, right? Um, we definitely did not set out to create something that was sellable. That
Hmm.
wasn't ever an objective. And in fact, we didn't even think about selling the company until someone said, I want to buy your company,
Hmm.
and then that thought got in there. And then over the next year, we kept seeing more and more evidence for why we should sell the company.
Hmm.
And a part of it was what I mentioned before, that we really felt like we had done our job. Like our job was to be the spark plug in the car, like to get
Hmm.
the engine running,
Right.
right? And so many people had benefited from our work and other work that they brought in, and they were now becoming the leaders in agile coaching, and we wanted to clear the field for them.
Hmm.
And for other reasons, that we were also feeling sort of like tired of it,
Right.
ourselves. And we realized that we built a business that doesn't scale because we were
Hmm.
unwilling. We were unwilling to give up on a deep level of quality and
Right.
a
Right.
deep transformational container for our teaching. Because our teaching was not just about acquiring skills, it was about addressing all those inner things that everyone has their own version of them, but similar to the ones we talked about with me. And so realizing all of those things, was sort of, it's very parallel actually to when someone said to me, I want you to write a book for my book series. And I'm like, no. That don't have anything to say about agile coaching. I'm a new agile coach. And then of course, over the next 6 months, all this evidence mounts up that I really should
Right.
write the book. So that's exactly what happened to us.
Right.
We friends of ours who we'd been collaborating with for a while said, we want to buy your company. And we laughed. We're like, yeah, that won't happen. But then over the next year, the evidence mounted up and we
Right.
decided to sell it.
And I don't know where I read this or I heard this, but that's sign of a true leader. The leaders create the environment for other leaders to grow, and they move on to something different. And you didn't directly help them grow to lead the agile coaching, but you create the environment for them, and so you moved on to something else. That's amazing. That's nice to hear.
Yeah. Well, that's a very nice spin on it. I mean, there's obviously lots more complication to the story.
Right.
So, and then there's pain involved and all kinds of difficulty, but I like the way you're looking at
Right.
it.
Um, Lyssa, throughout your whole career as a PM project manager, as a director, as a teacher of agile coaching, or working with the leadership or coaching in the field, um, do you have any horror stories that you want to share with our audience? Like there was one thing that you have, like you were going to a coaching session and something terrible happened, or something worthy of share.
There's a recurring horror story. It's happened about 3 times now. And I've gotten a little bit more comfortable with it when it happens.
Mhm.
But basically, the story goes like this. I am meeting a new organizational leader. This person doesn't really know much about Agile. They don't know about Agile coaching. They don't know
Mhm.
me. And our initial conversation is something like, well, tell me about Agile and why it should matter,
Mhm.
the leader asks. And so I give my 1 minute best elevator pitch. And then the leader will say, I don't really get that. Try again. And then I'll try some other slightly different angle. I'll try to engage that person in conversation so I can find out what matters to them, so that I can start to match what I'm saying to what matters to them. But it's sort of like it's the situation of encountering a brick wall again and
Mhm.
again and again. And oftentimes this would trigger like my deepest insecurities about, well, if I don't know like what they know, then how can I be useful to them? A lot of people say you can't coach executives unless you've been an executive. Well, that's true if you're relying on being smarter than them in their own field,
Right.
but if you are using professional coaching skills, you certainly can. But in this case, this was more of a consulting situation.
Right.
I'm not so great in those, honestly. I'm not great at convincing people. I'm not great at forcing my own way. I guess because I had to recover
Mhm.
from forcing,
Right.
become a good agilist, and so going into it doesn't feel good anymore. So so I used to get all triggered and like think I was horrible and blah blah blah, all kinds of negative self-talk. But this last time that it happened was about a year ago. I tried a couple different things, to address his question. And then I finally said, you know what? I don't think I'm ever going to give you an answer that will be satisfactory.
Mhm.
So let's think of who matches the angle you're coming from better, who might be able to meet you better. And then we brainstormed and we came up with like 2 other people who I know in the industry who just might match this person's mentality a little
Right.
bit
Right.
more. Yeah.
Right.
But I really do those are tough moments. Those are very, very
Right.
tough moments when I feel sort of caught. Or
Right.
like I'm supposed to have some sort of answer for this person, and I really don't.
Right. They're looking for an answer from you that you can't provide at that moment. Like it's
Exactly.
as if they're asking like you a directed question. Like they have some answer in mind, and
Hmm.
yeah. Yeah.
I mean, this is why when I work with groups, one of the things I love to do these days is do like a day of live agile coaching. And so I'll
Mhm.
show up somewhere and maybe it's a community group of agilists, or maybe it's inside of an organization and it's all of the agile coaches and product owners together, any kind of group like that. And what we basically do is we create a backlog of
Mhm.
like their most important issues,
Right.
prioritize that, and we go one by one. And I might facilitate something for the whole group depending on the topic, or do a one-on-one coaching for the whole group, or teach something and facilitate them using it, whatever makes sense. But what I learned in doing that is that the way they form their topics is really important. So if I just say, write down the topic that you would like to make the most progress on today, and each person writes down their topic, it is going to be a big old hairball of a topic that is so convoluted and so abstract that it's almost impossible to address.
Right.
But if I say to them, write the topic you'd like to make the most progress on, starting with how do I? So if they formulate it in how do I, then all of a sudden we're down to something real and specific, and that it matters to them. It's not just an idle curiosity.
Right.
And I can work with that. It's when it's these abstract things come at me that I'm like, I don't know, let's just get down to something real and then we can work.
Right. How do I?
How do I?
Yeah. Podcast listeners, keep that in mind. Like next day, go ask that question. How do I?
That's right. That's right. It also creates, I'm just realizing as we're talking, it also creates a sense of being in it with me.
Right.
Versus, I'm going to tell you about my big convoluted situation that we've probably been struggling with for 20 years, and you tell me the answer.
Right. Right.
Now all of a sudden it's about the person too. How do I help my leadership see the value of Agile?
True.
Is a really different place to start than not how, but convincing leaders of the value of Agile.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Lots of sparks going in my mind. Like, yeah, you are a good, as you mentioned, a good, what do you call it? Like igniter.
Spark plug.
Spark plug.
Yeah, igniter.
Right, right.
Most cars don't even have spark plugs anymore,
right,
I guess. I mean,
right.
mine doesn't. Mine's an electric car.
Right.
I don't know.
So the next question that I want to ask you is about, what skill set do you, like looking back at, you work with many coaches, right? You train many coaches, you work with many professionals, right? So what is the one skill set that you recommend people building for themselves as professionals?
Yeah, I really want to provide you a link and have you put it in the show notes, because there's just been this really amazing survey done by Scrum Alliance and the Business Agility Institute together, which is about what are the most needed skills in the workforce and how does that relate to the skills that Agilists have or are developing more than other communities. And I think that it's really, really interesting work. But basically, it's in the same realm we've been talking about.
Right.
So it's not a specific technical skill, although that's nice. It's not a specific coaching skill. It's not a specific quote unquote hard skill at all. The skills that are most in demand is the ability to metabolize change, the ability to work with what is and still be creative, and the ability to work with others. So like we can list 20 skills in those three categories, but that's the basic thing that is going to hold everyone well as we continue to move into territory in the business world and the world at large that's just frankly more uncertain.
Right. Yeah. You mentioned change, and that's a question that it's very good segue to ask you. My company called Elevate Change. What does that bring in your mind when you hear Elevate Change?
What I love about what that name creates is the idea that change doesn't have to be feared. That change doesn't have to be difficult even. That we can work with change without losing our way. And in fact, by doing that over and over again, we can elevate our ability to work more with what's actually happening around us versus pushing against it or wishing it were different.
Yeah, nice way to put it. Thank you. I never talk about the fear aspect of it. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so you mentioned you can't stay still. You have so many ideas that coming here and there for you. There was only 1 year that you didn't have you set aside. So I'm not sure if I'm up to date with your latest, but I think you started the Collective Edge, if I'm pronouncing the name
Oh
correct.
no, I did not. That
That's
was my former partner, Michael Spade.
oh,
That's
okay,
his
okay,
company. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. I
Um,
totally recommend what he's doing.
Right. So sorry about that. So tell us what new ideas you're working on. What is coming? You mentioned planetary challenges. Tell us more about that.
Yeah. So the where people will find out what I'm up to is on lyssaadkins.com.
Mm-hmm.
LYSSAADKINS.com. Very hard spelling of my name. Um, and the reason I didn't create a name, the reason I did not create a company with another name was that after selling Agile Coaching Institute, I wanted to partner with other people. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted their company names to be in the limelight and me to be joining in with them. And that's still true today.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so basically what's up for me is really helping leaders increase their mental complexity to be more of a match for the complexity that's actually in our world today.
Mm-hmm.
Anything related to that. And my little short phrase is conscious leaders make healthy choices. And this is also directly leading into the Planetary Challenges thing. We've had a bunch of leaders who've made a bunch of really devastating choices.
Mm-hmm.
And we are in a mess. We are experiencing now and will continue to experience even more rapidly incredible, devastating effects of our choices. And so anything I can do to help leaders make more healthy choices, healthy for everyone, themselves, their organization, the ecosystem their organization is part of, the planet at large, all of it, then I would consider that well done.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where I focus. And that shows up in leadership programs that I run for inside of organizations. I'm really loving doing a lot of one-on-one leadership coaching these days, specifically around deliberately developmental, like these leaders who know that their own mental complexity is the thing to develop. That's what I'm really good at.
Right.
Really good at it, and I love it. So I do that work either solo, one-on-one with a leader, or in a small group. I'm still doing one-on-one coaching, but it's in a small group, so there's some support from peers or other people who are in a similar situation. So I just love do that, and I'd love to do more of it. Actually, I'm really focusing 2024 on more one-on-one coaching.
Nice.
So yeah, if I'll make a shameless call out there to anyone who's listening to this. If you are or you have a leader who has a sense that their own capability is a little bit in the way, send them to me.
Yeah. And LyssaAdkins.com is the way to connect with Lyssa.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so this is directly related to the Planetary Challenges. And I don't think we can look away from the fact that we are at a species moment, and it is not guaranteed the human species is going to make it.
Yeah.
So that's really a hard thing to imagine.
Right.
And so in the face of that, like the most important thing would be leaders with all the skills we've talked about, leaders with the mental complexity to hold the conflicting aspects of almost any situation and still make a decision that creates the greatest good for all those different aspects I just mentioned. I mean, that's what we need in the world. And although the Agile community is not perfect by any means, I think the Agile community is an amazing, amazing source for good. We mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, like, isn't it amazing that you can go to any meetup of any Agile group anywhere And it's just a bunch of people learning, experimenting, sharing, helping
Right.
each other. I've never experienced that in any other community, and it happens everywhere around the globe. So if you think about how big the Agile community is worldwide,
Mm-hmm.
how many networks of networks are all connected or could be easily interconnected. And you think about the fact that we know how to make progress when things are highly uncertain and very anxious.
Right.
That is incredible. And wouldn't that be a force for good when the chips are down, when we're dealing with these really big issues like, you know, dozens of climate disasters all around the globe at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
mass migration of millions of people,
Yeah.
like we could really do a lot of good just by joining with the people who are already working on those things and just bring what
Right.
we know how to do and bring what we know how to be and see if we could be helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, a small instance of in my professional history, professional life was I was working with a client. There was this gentleman that he was an architecture. It was new to Agile, and so he was very resistant to what I was bringing to the table. After maybe 10 years, I got in contact with him. He moved to another country. He has started his own business, and he said the techniques that I learned from you, now I'm using it in my own business, and it expanded my horizon. So that's what he used. So exactly, like they might not get it at that point, but we don't get disappointed. We are the bunch of people that try something different. We go at it from a different angle. And you're right. If we partner with those people that are in charge of those challenges or working through those challenges, we could be very impactful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So one of my um, dreams and hopes that I've set my intention on this year is to um, create enough momentum for
Mm-hmm.
10,000 Agilists to come through an experience called the Week.
Mm-hmm.
The Week is something that's created by Frederick Laloux and his wife, and Frederick is very famous for his book Reinventing Organizations.
Right.
And he has created, he and his wife have created this program where you, as a group of people, sit down together for 3 times in a week and you watch a 60-minute documentary, and then you have a little conversation about the impact of that on you. And what it really does is take us right into the depth of this species moment that we're at,
Mm-hmm.
our very real scenarios of how our world that we think is so stable could actually collapse.
Mm.
And then, but it doesn't stop there, of course. If it did, that would be
Right.
really rough.
Right.
So it just takes you through, like, how did we get here? Why are we stuck? What will unstick us? And then it ends, the third one that you do in a week ends with stories of people who are doing amazing things.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is one of my particular goals, is to bring 10,000 Agilists through this program. I mean, we've started already this year. And I think, if we could impact 10,000 people and then many of them host it themselves, like just to
Right.
really amplify the impact. And then we're doing all these projects together. Then our
Mm-hmm.
learning and our experimentation and our sharing with each other is about what really matters to us, not about like the thing we're doing to help a bank do something.
Right. Right.
Very few of us care about getting the newest credit card offer out faster. I mean,
Right.
really, but we very much would care about salt water wrecking our drinking water,
Right.
for example, and that's something we could help do something about. So I'm hoping you're okay if I provide you some links,
Yeah,
because
for
there's
sure. Yeah.
amazing stuff that people are doing. There's my thing with the week, but there's also a whole magazine that's come out, the first edition of it. It's called We Hope, and it's stories of Agilists who are doing real things related to our planetary challenges, from helping people move out of extremism and into entrepreneurism, all the way up to helping a community recover from a hurricane. I mean, it's just all kinds of different things.
Nice. The week. So look for the week. And you mentioned that, is this a collaboration with Frederick, or it's based on what he was doing? The week is an inspiration from what he was.
He's pretty excited. He's pretty excited that I grabbed onto it so fast because I think it's so impactful. But no, we're not the only people doing it. So that he created this for the whole world, and groups of all in different kinds of industries, in churches, in families, in business, all different kinds of groups are watching the week and moving into action because of it.
Nice. It's like a Creative Commons that he put it out there, whoever wants to use. Right.
Absolutely. Nice. And it's absolutely free, and it's easy to host. Anyone can do it.
Nice.
Anyone can do it.
Nice. So you mentioned Reinventing Organization. This is a very good book that I recommend anyone that works in an organization to read. Any resources, any books that you would recommend to people, or any book that you are currently reading that you want to share with our audience?
Well, the one that really has my attention, there are two of them actually. So I would say they're in the same genre. So I would say like maybe, read a little bit about them and choose one. One is called The Age of Thrivability by Michelle Holliday, and the other is called Regenerative Leadership by Laura Storm and Giles Hutchins. And the reason why I think these two books are so important is because, I guess I'm on to my next mindset shift, honestly, my next total shift in beliefs. And I'm learning from primarily these two women, Laura and Michelle. And what I'm learning is how to think about everything we do in business through the lens of how the natural world already works, and how we can move our minds from thinking that everything is like a machine when most things actually are not like a machine. And so it's a lot of reprogramming for me, honestly, and I'm finding them really, really interesting.
Thank you for sharing those, and we put these information in the podcast.
Text. I'll give you the links for those too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We are coming to the almost end of our conversation, Lyssa. Is there anything that was meant to be said that we didn't talk about?
I don't think there's a new topic, but what's coming up is just a real extreme wave of appreciation for you, and for people like you who want to spread ideas and serve the community and advance agility, or any of our new ways of working, our ways that are more human-based, more collaborative-based, more based in how the natural world actually works. So, I really appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah, it's all for the community, as you said. The better the community, the better we all are going to be. And thank you to the guests like yourself accepting to talk to me and spending their time talking to me. So you mentioned LyssaAdkins.com. This is how to get in touch with you. Is there any other way that people might get in touch with you?
Well, you can certainly follow me and connect with me on LinkedIn. Yeah, certainly any of that. But I don't look at that as much as I pay attention to what comes through LyssaAdkins.com. So the contact us on LyssaAdkins.com is monitored, and that's probably the fastest way.
I really enjoyed our talk, Lyssa. Thank you so much again for spending time and being on the show. I hope to see you again soon. Thank you so much.
My deep pleasure. Thanks for inviting me. And I hope it's helpful for people.